Welcome, everyone, to this Professional Development Hour presentation brought to you proudly by the Atlanta Metro chapter of the Georgia Society of Professional Engineers, an affiliate of the National Society of Professional Engineers. Before we begin, we'd like to let you know that any opinions presented tonight are solely the opinions of the presenter and not that of the Georgia Society of Professional Engineers, the National Society of Professional Engineers, or any other of its affiliates. We certainly hope you will enjoy tonight's presentation, so sit back and relax, and on with the show.
All right, folks, we're going to start with the presentation. Our speaker today is Bill Womack, and he is going to be presenting just a quick refresher on engineering ethics, as well as an update on the PELS board. Bill, I'll let him introduce himself.
Okay.
Please join me welcoming.
We'll make it quick. First thing I have to say is, are there any veterans in the room? If they are, thank you for your service. We appreciate it. And also, I hope that everybody remembered the other veterans who gave the ultimate sacrifice during last weekend's thing. So we always need to remember our veterans. Today we're going to talk about engineering ethics. I'm going to probably run through a lot of this pretty fast and then get to some of the parts on the PELS board. I'm going to update y'all on where we are on everything. So I always start this, and y'all have seen this before. Do we need ethics? Do we need ethics in politics? Do we need ethics in engineering? Do we need ethics in life? I'm going to not talk about the first. I'm only going to talk about the second two. And so the answer is yes, we need ethics. Basically, if you look up the definition of ethics, there's several things, but it's, moral principles that govern your activity or your behavior. It's basic concepts of, fundamental principles of decent human conduct. So the old statement is, if it doesn't feel right, it probably isn't. One of my most favorite cartoons here. You got the little pointy-haired guy, if you remember. He's a big pharma. He's telling everybody that they're under a lot of scrutiny. So the young engineer wants to know is, can we avoid it, seeing avoiding the rules? He says, in other words, we should be honest and ethical. The response is, I'm saying it should look like that in ways in your emails. That's not the ethics we want, but that's the ethics we get a lot of times. So it's just not a perception. It is how you live your life. We're going to start with the GSPE Code of Ethics. And I always point this out to the students that I talk to at KSU. Engineering is a learned profession. Realize that. And as members of this professional engineering society, which is NSPE, y'all are GSPE, you are expected to deliver the highest standards of honesty and integrity. That would be ethics. So, always remember that. You have to be slightly above anybody else around you. That's what we do. So, the fundamentals of the canons. Number one, and you're going to see this multiple times in this, is that you are to hold paramount the safety, health, and welfare of the public. Remember that. That's what an engineer does. You're not there to make money. You're not there to do 1,000 jobs in a year. You are to protect the public. Always remember that. Then, rules of practice. Oh, by the way, look at number one again. Says the exact same thing. Number two is pretty interesting, and that is, perform services in your area of expertise. You're all aware that Georgia is a non-discipline specific state for professional engineers, which means I can practice anything I want. But always remember, if you're outside of your area of expertise, we might invite you to a meeting, and we might grill you. The other thing is, the last option we have is, we can ask you to go take the PE exam again in that area that you're practicing. If you don't pass it, we know what to do. If you pass it, then you are one. Remember that. So, we always do this. A lot of these things we shouldn't have to say, but we do. Number 5, we should avoid deceitful acts. I'm not sure why it's there, but we have to say it. We will say it more than once. Your professional obligations as a professional engineer. Again, honesty and integrity. That's what you do. Number 3 is pretty interesting. I don't know if any of y'all have ever been into this one, and that is, you don't disclose without permission information from one client to another client. So every client you deal with, remember, they're the only person you're talking to at the time. You can say, yes, I've done this, but you don't go into the details of how you did it for another job. That's the part of, that's the ethical, the integrity part of what you're doing. You should avoid conflicts of interest. I was going to say, y'all can read all this, but it goes back to that same statement. If it doesn't feel right, it isn't right. Number 8, we all know. In the state of Georgia, if you stamp a document, you are responsible for the document. We had this conversation at our table. Your drafter didn't make the mistake on the drawing. You made the mistake on the drawing because you are responsible for all the work that you stamp. So always remember that. And then the last one is, give credit where credit is due. If you're working with somebody or for someone and you do something, be sure to say, I was working with so-and-so and I did this. And help other people. So give credit where credit is due. IEEE, since I'm an electrical engineer, we have to do IEEE. It has a code of ethics also. And again, number 1 thing here is you make your decisions responsibly to health, safety, and welfare of the public. Always remember that. I love number 4. Why do I have to say, don't take bribes? If you take bribes, you might be like a couple of the individuals from the city of Atlanta. They're in jail now. They got caught. You'll eventually get caught. You're not going to skate the rest of your career. So always remember that. And you try to avoid conflicts. And I know I've told this story before. It could be a perceived conflict. The answer is, I had an office over on North Peachtree. I had an extra physical office. Had a really good friend of mine who was a lighting rep. He needed a place to run his business. I said, fine, come in here. You can have this office. I don't need to charge you rent. I'm already paying for it. He sat there. He was selling lights. He happened to sell sports lighting. I did sports lighting. I put out a big job in DeKalb County. One of the other vendors went to DeKalb County and said, well, Bill's going to give this job to these other people because the guy's in his office. I had to go defend myself. The answer was no, I'm not. I lent this guy space. I don't care what he sells. I have nothing to do with his business, etc. But that was a perceived conflict of interest that I never thought about. You have to think about these. So always remember that.
That's why we can't take commissions.
Well, we got to get there. We will get there. Number 5 is why y'all are here tonight, other than the fact that we require you to have now 15 PDHs per year. You need to always be trying to learn something every day. You want to maintain your technical competence. Treat fairly people. We have a lot of this where, we have DEIs or D whatever it is. It's all out there. Treat everybody equally. And actually, the last one I do like, and that is support your coworkers. Help them learn. Help them learn about ethics, etc. Because as a team, you're much better than as one individual. So always remember that. All right, NCES also has a code of ethics. It's kind of getting boring, isn't it? What do? Oh, the public. Thank you. We're going to get through this if it kills us. So, number 3 is an interesting one, and we'll pick up on this in Georgia also, is if you think there's something, you know, an authority or somebody is overruling you, you know, you have to know that. You have to be careful not to let someone tell you, well, I want you to do it this way. Because that's not the way it should be. You are the engineer of record. You are the guy stamping the drawing. Oh, you know, I could read all these, but I don't want to. Y'all can go online and look at it. But the answer is, you know, you don't criticize your compadres. Now, if there's someone doing something that you think is wrong, yes, you should call them, talk to them. Say, I don't think you're doing this correct, and help them. If they continue not paying attention, then yes, you might have to go one more step, and we'll get to those steps in a little bit. So always remember that. Okay, employer clients. You know, again, work within your range. Know what you're doing. God, I've done this so many times, I'm always forgetting what to do. Number 5, licensees shall not accept gratuities, directly or indirectly, from contractors or other agents who are doing your work. Remember that. So if you have a vendor who wants to take you to lunch, that's one thing. But if you have a vendor who wants to send you on a junket for the weekend to Las Vegas, that's a little different story. You better think about it before you go. You know, also, if there's a conflict, you need to report that either to your supervisor or to your client. So if you think there's a conflict, raise your hand. Don't ignore it. So, you know, you're supposed to do this. Number 7, you don't accept compensation but from one person. You're not paid by the contractor and your client. You're paid by one person. That's who you have your contract with. Again, if it doesn't smell right, it isn't right. Sorry about that. Hit the wrong button. Okay. You do have obligations to other licensees. Always remember that. You know, don't make up stuff about your competitors. You can say, well, you're a better engineer, but you can't say, well, he's a really bad engineer because he does this, this, and this. Always understand that. So, kind of keep all that in mind. You know, and the same point, back to bribery. Bribery works on your part also. Don't try to give something to somebody. And this could be including, you know, political contributions. You have to be very careful. Because if you give something to, say, a county commissioner, and then that county commissioner can vote on a contract, that could be a problem. So think of it that way. It's not always real simple. So you have to, you know, you have to be on your toes constantly. And number 4 is what I was talking about. You know, if you make an effort, if you see somebody who's making an error or an omission on a job, talk to them. Either see if they're going to understand why you're telling them this. That's your job as a professional engineer. All right, now what I'm most familiar with is this. So the question is, who's read that on the website? That 2, 3, okay, 4? Okay. All right, the rest of you who didn't, I want your PE number because we're going to get to number 3 here in a minute. Okay, basically, this is the Georgia laws. And again, we come back to this. And always remember this. The board is not there to protect the engineer or the land surveyor. We don't give a rat about y'all. We are to protect the life, welfare, and safety of the public. And then we're supposed to watch over y'all. So always remember that. We're not your friend, but we're also not your enemy. So, you know, you're supposed to follow the rules. You're supposed to understand when you become licensed, what are the rules? I always like to start off sometimes with, who knows what Rule 186.013 says? And that says, you're charged with having the knowledge of the existence of the rules of professional conduct in the state of Georgia. Now, I don't know how many of y'all are licensed in multiple states. I once was licensed in 25 states. If I did a job at another state, first thing I did was go to their website and look at their laws and their rules and make sure I wasn't messing up. Because guess what? They are not the same in every state. You have to be very careful because you don't want to have some state put, you know, something against you. So always remember that. You know, in the power to interpret these are by the board, not by y'all. It's kind of like working with the authority having jurisdiction on a permit. Doesn't matter what you think. Only the authority having jurisdiction knows. That's a scary one sometimes. So always remember that. I did it again. Rats. Okay. We have the protection of the public part of our board rule. Practice in a manner too. What are those? Thank you. I knew I was going to call you more than once. Good man. Okay. So, you know, and again, if your judgment is being overruled, you need to inform the proper authorities. The proper authorities could be your client. Proper authorities could be the authority having jurisdiction, the code official, something like that. So always remember that. Another rule of practice is perform in your area of competence. Again, in Georgia, you can do anything you want as long as you can prove to the board that you are competent to do that. And very few people have done that. We have some individuals who think that they can stamp the civil, the structural, the mechanical, the plumbing, and the electrical on a job. Pretty much they've never been able to tell us that they're competent in all 5 of those disciplines. It's a problem. So always remember that. Okay, conflicts of interest. And again, I wonder why I have to write down the very first thing. Engineering and land service shall avoid conflicts of interest. But we do. So we tell you, you know, but sometimes it is unavoidable. You may end up in a conflict of interest. If that's so, raise your hand. Make sure everybody's aware that you possibly have a conflict, and they can decide whether or not you stay or go. That'll be somebody else's decision, not your own. You always talk to your client. You always talk to, if you're working in a big company, you need to go to your supervisor. Tell them what's going on. Again, you're not allowed to take compensation from anybody but the guy you have the contract with. So a vendor or somebody else wants to give you something, it's probably not acceptable. Other than, I'll say this, other than a lunch. You can have lunch, that kind of stuff. But if they want to send you on a 4-day boondoggle, my guess is that's probably not somewhere you want to go, especially if you're speccing their equipment or their material. Yeah, let's see. And I guess it also says if you can't get, you know, if you're serving on some board, say you're serving as a county whatever, you know, not building, you know, like park and rec thing, then you can't give yourself a job. Remember that. So you have to always kind of pay attention to that. All right. Conduct. You have to work where you're qualified. And for some reason or other, we have to tell you that you have to figure out the scope of the job before you give your client a fee. I'm not really sure why that's there, but that makes sense to me, you know. So, you know, and then of course, if you start to misrepresent your qualifications or what you can do, that's a problem. Now, that doesn't mean you cannot move in your career in other areas, but you probably should tell that first client, you know, I've never done this before. If you will let me try, and I promise to do it, you know, you've done the ethical thing. But if you walk out and say, you know, I can do power, I can do lights, I can do miscellaneous systems, I can do studies, I can do everything, my guess is you probably can't. So always remember that. You want to make sure that you tell them the truth. Okay. Who wants to read the first sentence? The engineer and land surveyor shall only, you know, with reputable persons and organizations, only associate with reputable people. Most likely you know when you're dealing with someone who is probably not on the up and up. If they come to your office with drawings and $400 in cash and want you to stamp a drawing, my suggestion is don't do it. Even if they come with $1,000 now, don't do it. You're probably going to make a mistake. So, then number two, if you believe a person or a firm is in violation of our law and our rules, you are to report that to the board and work with the board with the information you have. I've said this 100 times. The board is not the police department. We are the enforcement arm of the law under the state of Georgia. Therefore, we're not actively trying to find everybody messing up, but we need your help. And I will say this, engineers typically don't eat engineers. Surveyors eat surveyors. Probably 75% of all actions brought to the board are by surveyors. And I asked the question one time, why? That didn't make any sense to me. And then they told me, it figured out. When you do a survey, you have a line. The next guy does a survey. If his line doesn't come to the same line, if they don't butt, guess what? There's a problem. Somebody made a mistake. You do an engineering job, even if you build a building. Then 3 years later, somebody else comes in and renovates it. They're probably not going to find your mistake. They'll work over your mistake. That's why it's so important that we need help. So kind of always remember that. It is your responsibility to help the board. Okay, we're going to get into some of the fun stuff now. This is an article in Engineering News Record back in 2016 that I found, and it's Your Praxis is Your Ethics. And this guy, John Schmidt, was writing this, you know, it's the last page on the ENR magazine where they have this. And he said, perhaps at least the problem is the confusion about the nature of engineering ethics. Is it simply a set of rules to follow or group behaviors to avoid over and above the technical aspects of your profession? You know, could there be more to ethics? Maybe something positive. And the answer is, I think it's something positive. He had this quote, and I usually say it 2 times. I advocate treating ethics as something that is integral to your practice, not supplemental to it. It should be integral to your practice. You should always, that should be in the forefront of what you do. And then he had this last thing, he called it virtue ethics. I'm not sure what he was getting at other than virtue ethics is less concerned with what someone has done and will do than what kind of person or engineer someone is and will become. Think of that. You know, you control your destiny in a lot of cases by how you approach your business. All right. We're going to start doing some cases. I steal these from NSPE. They have a board of ethical review. And what this board is you can send in to NSPE a scenario, if you will, and ask them to give you a ruling. They usually have a handful of retired engineers and they will assign them out to people. So this one is you have engineer A, he's a fire protection guy. He's retained by a client to provide a confidential report in connection with the possibility of renovation of an old apartment building that the guy's thinking of doing. So, engineer A does his job. He goes in, he does an audible test. to see if he's getting the right dB the furthest away from the devices. And if anybody doesn't know that, look in the fire code. You have to have so many dB at the furthest point from every unit. So he comes back and he says, well, the fire alarm was there, it was put in, it was worked on, but in terms of the test, there's a code violation. It doesn't work. So he follows up with his client and he tells him that, you got a problem in your building. Now, what would this be covered under? Something like health, safety, and welfare of the public? Well, engineer A is then told by the client, well, my financing fell through, I'm not going to do anything with it, I'm not going to renovate it. Thank you. So it's not addressed. More importantly, engineer A is paid for his services. So what has engineer A done? So what's his obligation? Anybody remember from the GSPE stuff?
To protect the public safety.
That's true, but it also said you had to notify someone.
Right.
Okay, so he notified someone, right? Correct? He notified us, he sent the report to us, the confidential report to his client. So he's done the things he's supposed to do, except exactly that. Now he knows something. So, what he taught me, and again, this is kind of what the GSPE Board of Ethical Review goes through. They go through all of this. And, as they say, he found a problem. It has to do with public safety. He's notified his client. His client has said, well, okay, now you told me this. I can't afford to fix the building. I'm going to let it ride. But he now has the facts that says something's wrong. So, he's already told his client there's a problem. But his client is going to do nothing about it.
Well, he could sit with the client and try to suggest a
much
more affordable stopgap measure to correct it until further.
You're correct, but that's not part of what they did. Okay? So, so what is he, what is his ethical thing? What should he now do? Anybody want to take a gander before I hit the next slide?
Report it to the local fire marshal.
Bingo. That's it. But he should advise his client that he's got to take the steps.
Right.
If his client says no, then he tells his client, I'm going to go to the fire marshal. I got to go somewhere. I have to do something. I can't let this slide. So that's an ethical dilemma. Pardon?
I did that at Tech.
Good. All right. I like this one. Y'all have probably seen this one before. Again, engineer A. Now he's multidisciplinary, you know that. Engineer A is a structural guy and he's doing a drone inspection of a bridge. So he's flying his little drone all around. He works for the Department of Transportation. And so as he's doing his inspection, one day all of a sudden, middle of the bridge, we have a shootout between the police and a bad guy. Now he doesn't really know this, and so he realizes this when he gets back that he now has this information. So, so he basically, following a review of his drone, he relates to the Department of Education, noting the gunfire event. The DOT says, plans not to share the information with the local authorities unless they request it. Now, I always say this. I'm a dude in the middle of the bridge shooting a gun. You think I'm going to hear on top of me? Probably not. I wouldn't even know that this exists. But he's done the ethical thing. He's told his client, I have this information. What do I do with it? His client says, sit on it. So, what should he do? Anybody want to venture at this one? before I go to the next slide? I'll go to the next slide because it's full of stuff here. You know, what they ended up saying was, Engineer A did the right thing, but yet he probably has to go one step further because he has some information that could or could not be very important, either to help the police or to help the other guy, depending on who you think is right or wrong. You know, but, you know, he has this and he's done what he's supposed to do ethically, so he could walk off and say, I'm done. But at the same point, this is kind of like the fire alarm thing. He knows he has something. So the answer is, you know, he took the appropriate action. You know, this is interesting. While the Board of Ethical Review believes the engineer fulfilled his ethical responsibility under the Code of Ethics, you know, it still is a safety, it's a hazard with the public. So their part was notify the Department of Transportation, you're going to send it to the police anyway. Go from there. Whoops, got too fast on me. I assume everybody remembers this, or most of you. There's a few that may not. The Challenger blew up in '86. And the thing that I'm going to take out of this is not all the stuff, but they had a sociologist named Diane Vaughan who came up with this term called normalization of deviance. And what that was, of course, was the O-rings weren't designed to be, you know, sent into space below 50 degrees. Well, the first couple of shots were above 50. Next one, let's just say, was at 48. 48 became normal. Next one was at 45. 45 became normal. You're taking it and you're moving it down. You're normalizing the deviance that shouldn't be there. So think about this in your own design. Me as an electrical engineer, I have to design circuits to a 5% voltage drop from the source to the furthest device. 5%, that's easy. Okay, so I do a job and I got one and it's 5.1%. I'm probably not going to get caught. I design another one a year later and I'm at 5.5%. Probably not going to get caught on that one either. A year later I design one at 6%. Possibly going to get caught. But I didn't get caught at 5.5. But the code said 5. That's the normalization of deviance. So think of that in your own practice.
You know, what thought that I have on one thought that I have on this one is the baseline is the design criteria in the first place. Mm-hmm. So if you have a deviance, an engineering analysis could be done on that one deviance, and under the circumstances, the engineer could come up with justifications where the engineering requirements are still satisfied. But it's a case-by-case issue. Yep. And in this particular case, we all know that the engineers were putting their foot down and they were overruled.
And they were overridden.
But
exactly.
the design criteria
we'll get there in
governs,
a minute.
and if the criteria needs to be changed, change it,
Yep.
but don't deviate from it.
No, and you're exactly correct. But that's the whole point was, no, they didn't go back 5 shots before and say, okay, we went at 40-something, can we do it at 40-something? You know, they just kept going down and assuming it. Same thing with the Volkswagen scandal. Everybody remembers Volkswagen with the diesel emissions, exactly. Not one engineer did this. They did this over a period of multiple years, and the engineers each wrote a piece of the code. They didn't write the whole code. And eventually the code collapsed. But that was the whole thing, was their bosses were saying, make these engines more efficient, make them pass, make them do this. And so they'd write just a little bit more. And then next year somebody else would write a little bit more. That was this problem again. And they got caught. Now, who knows who Al McDonald is? I know you do, Roger. Anybody else? And how does he fit into this conversation? Anybody know? Well, cool, this is new then. Perfect. Here we go. Let me see if I can make my thing go down. I did it again. You know, I got drug into this computer industry here. All right. Al McDonald, he was Tycal's chief project engineer on the booster rocket project. He's the guy who set the 50-degree temperature range. Now, I picked this up out of, he died only a few years ago. And then a lot of this stuff came out on the internet after he passed away. But evidently, he did, I don't know where Chapman University comes into play, and I don't know who this Mark Mayer is, but he interviewed Al. And basically, he was at the launch. And his job was to approve or disapprove the launch that day. And he had to sign the form. And he believed there was a risk, and he refused to sign the form. And so here's a guy who is putting a 30-year career on the line because he will not sign the form. And, the answer is, and we may not all know this, but what happened was NASA then went over his head back to Tycal and got the Tycal vice president, who I don't know who it was, sign off on it. They shot it up, and of course we know what happened, 80-something seconds later. So, here it is. This guy did the right thing. You still had 7 astronauts die. So, his team were continuing through until that launch saying, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it, because it was a blow. And basically, he was overruled. But who could he go to? His client was NASA, his boss was Tycal, So, what really happened on this is, maybe I should go back one. Nope, went the wrong way. Come on, Bill. If I know what's I'm hitting the silly thing on my computer. Okay, there we go. Now I got to go to full screen again. Start from the current slide. Sorry about that. I am not a computer person. You probably didn't notice that. Okay, so while Congress was having the hearings after the explosion, as they say, he's sitting in the cheap seats, and the NASA and the Tycal officials are up at the desk testifying to Congress. And man in the cheap seats goes ballistic, raises his hand, he gets called upon, and then he goes up and testifies. And that's when they found out that he was the one who was overruled by the officials that were sitting at the desk before him, and that, they totally neglected what he was saying, even though he was the guy who did the design and the guy who had to sign off on it. They overruled him. And so then, this is the thing that's kind of funny, and I really like this. And I've never had this situation in my career. I don't know if any of you others have had it, but I wish if I did have it, I could do this, and I hope I would do this, and that is, he talks about the 7 R's, and the 7 R's are it's always do the right thing for the right reason at the right time with the right people, and you'll have no regrets for the rest of your life. Think about that. This man was willing to throw away a 30-year career, and my guess is he was probably pretty high up making pretty good bucks to do this. And the whole thing is to do the right thing. So think about that in your own practice. If I know I've had a few of them, but mine have been very minor compared to this. All I was going to do was lose a client. All righty. I have Mr. Luther here. I'll get to him in a second. These are my conclusions. Yes, ethics in engineering is one of the most important things you can do. because your job is to protect.
Life, health, and property, no public welfare.
Thank you. I'm going to get some participation if it kills me. So always remember that. And then, as Mr. Luther has said many times to me, know your limitations and know your subject matter. Learn your limitations and learn from your mistakes. You're all going to make mistakes. None of you are perfect. None of us are perfect. And always check your work. If you don't check your work, I'll guarantee you're coming to Macon or now to Atlanta. All right. Just my little stuff here. Respect your stamp and your license. It's your name, remember that. You can throw your name away for $300, I don't care. I'm not going to throw my name away for $300. And always do the right and ethical thing in your practice. That's what we're paid to do. And then be transparent. If you make a mistake, say I made a mistake. If you didn't make a mistake, don't say you made a mistake. But realize you're going to make mistakes. Things are going to happen. But be very transparent about it. All right. Boy, that didn't come up well. The board, as everybody knows, in 2022, I think it was, the HB 476 was signed, which made the PELS board an independent state agency, but we are connected to the Secretary of State's office, basically for personnel and things like this. So we've been trying to put together, this is like starting a brand new company from scratch. And there's only 9 of us, remember that. So the first thing that we did was we have hired an executive director. Executive director is Darren Mickler. He was our executive director, but with the Secretary of State, he was the executive director of 5 other boards. Now he is with us full time, 100% of the time. We're presently posting for an assistant executive director position and a head staff analyst position. I don't know about y'all, but being an independent business person, I thought this would be easy. This is not easy. We have to go through the state. We have to go through all these procedures. We're working our way through it. One thing I am happy to say is we have got under contract and they are working very hard on new licensing software. Unfortunately, it will not come out, won't go online until the end of the first quarter of 24, so you will have to renew under the old software. And as we all know, that's a pain in the backside. But, you know, we're working through that. When we started this whole thing, we went out and found we got with liaisons for the various professional organizations, and we asked everybody, where should the office be? We were told the office should be in Atlanta. Therefore, we are presently trying to get a lease in Peachtree Center in Atlanta. We have to work through the State Property Commission. Unfortunately, Peachtree Center is in receivership right now, so getting a lease is a little bit of a problem. Yes, sir.
The licensing software
issue. Due to that, do you recommend you do not wait to the last minute to renew?
I'm going to get there. Yes, sir. You are exactly right. Mr. Grabman, do not wait till the 31st of December to renew your license. If not, you might be going ahead and paying us that extra fee because you're late. At 12:01 on January 1st, you're late. Go ahead and do it. I did mine last week, as a matter of fact. Pardon? Thank you to the Secretary of State's office. I can't say that. I can't say that. We're not allowed to send stuff out. It has to go through the channels. The channels have not sent it out. Now, we have sent out 2 emails. You should have gotten an email. Did you not? Do we have your right email address? Okay. We've sent 2 emails out. One discussing a lot of this. I hate to say it. I don't know how many emails y'all get a day. I get 50 or 60 sometimes, and I'm retired. You know, you don't read everything. Slow down, take a look. We've sent it all out. So I will say this. Our next board meeting, December 14th, will be in Peachtree Center on the 18th floor International Tower. It'll be at the ACEC office. Please come. It's open to the public. So we'd love to have people show up. As I've said before, we want you to show up to our meetings. You don't want to be invited to our meeting. If you're invited, that's a problem. We're also working with a web designer. Actually, our web page will probably be up before the software, but they will be all linked, so you will now go to one spot and you can find everything. You can find applications, renewals, inquiries, you can put in disciplinary action, you can ask questions, et cetera, et cetera. We're working on things like phones, email addresses. Can't have an email address until we get a website. We can't have a website until we have a URL, whatever it is. We're trying to get that from the state. We think we have it. We don't know yet, but we're working that. So a lot of things hinge. Kind of the funny thing is we can't even come up with a letterhead because we don't have an address or a phone number or an email address yet. Once we get also a logo. We do have a logo, but we hadn't been able to put it on anything. So we're working on that. But we have a really good web designer who has worked with the state before, so that helps us. Our licensing software, as a matter of fact, is the same company that used to do the licensing software for the Secretary of State's office up until about 3 years ago, when they decided they were smarter than these folks. They threw them out, and they're trying to do their own. So kind of the old, I want to beat them. My guys are going to be out before the Secretary of State goes live. That's their goal. So, and it's going to be it will be a decent site. It will be, we have weekly meetings now with the entire design team. There's 4 of us that meet by Zoom once a week to talk about the various things that should be on the software. And again, the website will take you directly to the software, or to that. So at that point, man, I made it. Any questions? Any answers? Yes, sir.
Wait, get the microphone. Turn it on. Turn it on. Turn it on.
It'll light up when it's on.
I don't see any light, but my question is about disciplinary action. Would you tell us approximately how many cases, including the surveyors that you mentioned, there's a lot of those, and the engineering side of your board, how many disciplinary actions have you conducted in the past 5 years?
Okay, I don't have an answer for you. I can get it, and I'll send it out. But the answer is, we are getting much better, but part of the whole system, if you will. Someone puts a disciplinary action in, we have to look at it. If we think it warrants going in and investigating it, then we have to get the investigator from the Secretary of State's office. There are, I think, 4 investigators for the entire state of Georgia for all 43 boards. Sometimes it takes us 6 to 8 months to get one who gets scheduled to go do what we need done. Then it comes back. I'm on one right now that the guy, it took us 5 months to get him out there. He asked some questions. He didn't know what questions he was asking. He comes back with the answers. I look at it. I have an entire list of questions. It's like, why didn't you ask this? The next question. So one thing that we as the board are doing, we are hiring our own investigators who know something about engineering and land surveying. Then when it comes back finally and we do get something where we are going to take it somewhere, we then work through the Attorney General's office. We do have an Assistant Attorney General who is assigned to the board, and he will still be assigned to the board. Then you have to wait for them, because they're busy, they're working Our one guy works with like 4 other boards, and one of those boards is the nursing board, which takes a lot of his time. Then if it ends up in court, I mean, it may take us 2 years to get somebody in court. Now, we're hoping to greatly reduce that time frame by having our own investigators and being able to come up and get things done much quicker. And if we have to, we'll go hire our own legal staff, or at least hire some representation. We haven't gotten there yet. But at one point, I can remember the list being 15 or 20 deep. But they were always in process. And it was the process we had to follow. So we hope to that's one of the things we definitely want to remedy. The other thing that we're going to remedy that I know is a problem for everybody is when you call the board, someone's going to answer the telephone. And they're going to talk to you. And they're not going to be the Secretary of State's call center who has no clue what you're calling about, who doesn't even know to give us the note that says, John over here called 4 days ago with a question. You think you should call him back? So we're going to solve that problem, and that's an easily solved problem. There are just a lot of things that we've been working under that we have no control over. And I know it's tough for y'all to hear because you're paying us money every year to renew your license. And we are aware that we quadrupled or 4 times your PE fee. Any SEs out here? You got hit twice, didn't you? First year, you won't get hit this year. I think the email was sent out said your SE will now be $10. So he's at 110, you're at 100. Okay? He was at 200 last year. Think about it. That is ridiculous. But that's the way the law was written. And now we're trying to fix it. So the other thing that I, kind of future things that are going to happen, I don't have it on the board, but things that are going to happen in the future. When we hire our own investigators, we're possibly going to have some ex-retired engineers and land surveyors ride with the investigator. Because you know as well as I do, you can ask someone a question and they can give you an answer. And if you're in that field, you know to probe a little deeper to that answer, just not write it down, yes or no. That's going to be one thing that we're going to be looking at doing. We are going to be trying to get the renewals down to a level where it all works. Right now, if you read HB 476, the state's supposed to return pretty much all the money that we take in back to us. I have to look around. They lied last year. They gave us back about 40%. They kept 60%. So we weren't even funded until September, until July of this year. We weren't funded. Last year we weren't even in the budget. We had no money. In the first half of the year we had no money because they didn't put a line item in the budget for us. But they passed the law.
How can you do your job if you're not being funded?
Duh. I'm sorry.
Repeat his question.
Pardon?
Repeat his question.
His question is, how can we do our job if we're not funded? And the answer is, duh, we can't do our job if we're not funded. This is one reason why it's taken us this kind of time frame. It took us, until we could post for even the executive director's position, we couldn't post and hire someone until we knew we could pay them. And we couldn't have any money until July 1st. So they came in, in July. Yes, sir.
So one thing on the VW diesel emissions testing thing that complicates that just a bit is it's arguable that the clients in that case, the customers of Volkswagen, were not harmed. Mm-hmm. The only ones that were harmed was they subverted a bogus emissions test protocol written by regulators, not elected politicians. So, whether that's law or not. And the problem was it it had to do with the first, I believe it was 15 minutes, where diesel engines are not efficient when they're cold. They become efficient when they warm up. So they reduce power in that first time frame. So, I'm not trying to argue one way or the other with it, but it does complicate that
The
scenario.
Volkswagen was a very complicated thing because not only did it not harm an owner, it actually harmed the owner, but the people who did it worked for the manufacturer, who then sold the cars to the dealers, who then sold them to the people, and the people are the one who got hit. Again, health, welfare, and safety of the public, but yet they're also German engineers. They don't go by our laws. They don't have, they don't go by our ethics. So it was a very complicated thing.
And the positive test results encourage the bureaucrats to write more stringent regulations?
Probably so. So, if we keep moving the line, it's a problem.
Deviation.
Yep. Yes, sir.
One question here about the software that you spoke about that's coming sometime next year. What are the benefits we should be expecting from the software? Is there anything new?
Okay, benefits. He's asking about the benefits of the new software package. Some of the benefits are you will be able to do everything online from your phone, from your computer, from whatever device you have. You can't do that right now. That's one benefit. You can pay by credit card, as you know. You'll still be able to do that. But it will actually help the applicants more than the licensed engineers, because all you're doing is renewing, correct? But when you are applying for a license or applying for comedy into the state, it's going to make that a lot easier. We're going to do things like, as you applied originally, you had to have 5 endorsers. So you had to take the form, print it, fill out the first page, give it to the guy, they had to sign it, put it in an envelope, seal it, stamp it, give it back to you. You had to mail it to us. We had to open it. It's all going to be done electronically now. When you say who your endorsers are, the software is going to send them, you're going to fill out the first page. It's going to send them a link to that. They're going to fill it out with a DocuSign, send it back. We haven't got to DocuSign yet. That's a little bit of a problem. That is 180.12 something. I have it in my book here. We're working on electronic signatures and electronic stamps. That's a problem. We have not figured it out yet, I'll be very honest with you, because we have one part of our rule that nobody knows how to make work. And that is, if you do this and you have it correctly done on your document and somebody else touches your document, your signature is going to go away. The verifiable signature. How do you do that? There's a couple of services that you can go through, but we're trying to figure out, do we want to make you go buy a $400 a year service to sign your name? Yes. So, but in converse of that, I got around it for years. When I say I got around it, I printed my drawings, I hand stamped them, hand signed them, hand dated them, made a PDF, and sent that off. I maintained 100% control of the original. Therefore, I met the intent of the law. Now, grant you could take that and do whatever you wanted with it if you had a PDF editor, but I still had the original.
Bill, there have been algorithms out there freely available for decades that solve that problem.
You and I need to talk here.
It is an electronic signature such that if you change so much as one bit of that data, it invalidates the signature.
Okay, I need to talk to you because we've talked to Florida, several other states do it, and they're all going through these people who sell you this.
Right, expensive versus free.
Yeah, and we, the board, we don't want to make you have to continue throwing money every year to do something. So we got to figure a way, but we will figure that out.
At least you'll be ethical.
Pardon?
At least you'll be ethical by admitting that you will not be able to.
Well, I'm going to my clients and saying, I can't do this. So see, you're my clients, remember that.
All right, folks, we need to wrap up. Please join me.
Thank y'all.
I know you have a collection of these, but here's another one to add to your
All right.
collection.
You know, you can never have too much for coffee.
All right.
So,
Thank you so much.
you.
All right, folks. We got a couple of things pending here.
We hope you enjoyed this presentation given at one of the Atlanta Metro Chapter meetings of the Georgia Society of Professional Engineers, an affiliate of the National Society of Professional Engineers. To find out more about us or to join us, check us out at gspe.org.